YouTube, welcome in. Jake Asman with you, a special impromptu show. We got to hop on the air here, YouTube only, because the Jets schedule is out. It has been leaked. If you're listening to this before 8 p.m. Eastern, you might be going, what? What do you mean it's out? Well, the way social media works, an entire schedule can get posted well before the primetime special, breaking it all down, and the team's actually announcing it on their own. So I thought it'd be a good idea to hop on, talk some Jets, and to do that, we bring on a good friend, Paul Boy Green, Edsen Jr. He covers the Jets for Heavy.com. He talks about the Jets on local radio up in Syracuse. He's a passionate fan, knows the team incredibly well, and he's kind enough to hop on here impromptu and talk some Jets. So, Paul, let's do it, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
A hell of an intro, man. I appreciate it. And, man, I'm ready. I'm amped up, man. I know some people are a little questionable in the schedule release, saying, hey, we knew the opponents all ahead of time. Talk to me in September. Screw those people. It's time to talk some New York Jets schedule, man.
Never a bad time, certainly. A reminder to anyone that's just tuning in, just watching this, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe on YouTube below. That way I can continue to produce more Jet stuff in addition to the daily radio show that I do Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern on Sports Map Radio, which you can see right there. So, all right, Paul, let's kind of get into it. We knew early on, I woke up today, and I think it was around 7 Houston time, so 8 o'clock Eastern time, that the Jets and their week 1 matchup was going to be Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers. Now, I know a lot of Jet fans maybe wanted this in prime time, maybe wanted this matchup later in the year, but I'll tell you what, I have no issue with it. You know what? I prefer the Jets to open at home, but you know what? If you got to go on the road, that's still a winnable game in week 1, and you might as well get the Darnold storyline out of the way. I feel good about giving, Robert Saleh months now to prepare a defensive game plan to go up against Sam Darnold. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad that's the Jets' first game of the season.
I'm going to be honest, that was, and I'm not just saying this because it's the first game on the schedule that leaked out. This was the one I had circled, and I think every Jets fan had circled on the opponent at the very least. On the opponent side of this game, it's Sam Darnold, it's Zach Wilson. Of course, the other storylines, Robbie Anderson is over there. Matt Rule, the what could have happened is over there. And I know Jet fans seem pretty happy with Robert Saleh for good reason. But the Matt Rule, what could have happened? Joe Brady, what could have happened? And now we're going to get all that in week 1, and now we have months and months of speculation to get ourselves there. To me, it was the number 1 game I was most looking forward to on the schedule. We get it win, and to imagine one way or the other, if Sam Darnold lights the Jets up, what we're going to have to be hearing from New York media and everybody rip apart the Jets and everybody moving forward. Or on the other side, imagine the hype train. If Zach Wilson just balls out week 1, Sam Darnold looks terrible, the Jets beat the Panthers. I don't know if we'll be able to stop Zach Wilson, Rookie of the Year, and every kind of hype and all that jazz on social media. This was the number 1 game, and I'm glad they put it week 1. They nailed it.
No doubt. I'm totally fine with it. You could have put this maybe on Monday Night Football if it was, part of the doubleheader. Just remember a couple of years ago, you had the Jets and the Lions for Sam's first game on national TV, but they're not doing the Monday Night Football doubleheader this year at 2021. So that kind of was eliminated. And, as much as we care about it as Jets guys, they're not going to put this game in a late window 4 o'clock game either. So it was always going to be played at 1 o'clock. I thought the Jets and the Giants were both going to be opening up at home in some capacity, with the 20th anniversary of September 11th. I figured they'd want both the Giants and Jets to be home. Just like, if you remember 10 years ago already, the Jets played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football on the 10th anniversary of September 11th. So I thought that was a possibility. But as far as the matchup, I mean, look, you were going to have to play Darnold at some point. You might as well get it on, get it over with. And, if you're going to get Sam learning a new system, you could say the same thing about Zach Wilson. You can, of course, about Sam Darnold here. So it could go both ways. The Jets could play well and kind of, officially turn the page in the Sam Darnold tenure, or Sam could play really well and the Jets could lose, and the media will have a field day with that. So we'll see. I think clearly the Jets are an improved team, and we'll get a chance to see how they look right away against their former quarterback.
Yeah, I love it again, and honestly, that's where I thought it was going to go. I predicted the schedule, so to speak, and I was saying, the same thing to you, the 20th anniversary, and again, I can't believe 2021 that's where we're at here. For September 11th. But nonetheless, that's what I thought. You get Giants, who normally have had that Sunday Night Football game against the Cowboys, and then you could have enough time to turn it over for what would have been the doubleheader on Monday Night Football, but obviously the doubleheader being here. That's my expectation, too. So I was a little surprised that it didn't. But again, fans shouldn't be surprised that they opened up this one again, Sam Darnold. Look at the Carolina Panthers depth chart. No Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, Will Greer, the former West Virginia. It's Sam Darnold. Okay, they picked up the fifth-year option. Zach Wilson, James Morgan, Mike White. Who? So obviously, you're going to have that week one. Again, the schedule makers, chef's kiss. They know what they're doing.
No doubt. No doubt about that, Paul. So as far as week 2, let's continue here. The home opener for the New York Jets, it will be against the New England Patriots. Now, it's significant for a bunch of reasons, but what I look at is, all right, if you're playing New England early, you're more likely to see Cam Newton, obviously, than you would Mac Jones later in the year. So the Jets home opener will be week 2 against New England. I'm excited. I mean, look, you're gonna have to play the Patriots twice. I feel like you're usually better off getting New England at the beginning of the year. History will show you, than later in the year when they finally would fine-tune things and start clicking on all cylinders. Now, a lot of that you could say, well, what does it matter? Brady's not there. It's a brand new situation there, but we shall see. That should be a fun game. MetLife's going to be rocking. First game for Zach Wilson at home, and it got me thinking to Mark Sanchez's rookie season. If you remember, the Jets opened up in Houston against the Texans. They won that game. They come home to, at the time, Giants Stadium and beat New England in Rex and Sanchez's first game against the Patriots. Terrell Revis had a huge interception in that game. So, maybe history could repeat itself here where the Jets' new head coach and new rookie quarterback could have some success early on in a week 2 home game against the New England Patriots.
That's funny. That's what I mentioned on the podcast. And I remember a Dustin Keller Sanchez touchdown at the end. I think the Jets won that one like 17-14 or something like that. So that's one of the first thoughts when I came here to see it. And also, it's interesting. The schedule makers, you mentioned that it's better to have the Patriots in the early portion of the schedule. Last year, the Jets played the Patriots twice, and both of them were November and on. So in this case, both of those matchups will be wrapped up by, I believe it's the 24th of October. So we're getting the complete visit here. And again, that could change the entire quarterback dynamic, whether you're getting Cam Newton early as opposed to Mac Jones potentially later in the year. And Cam Newton couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat last year. I mean, look at the passing numbers. Oh, God. I mean, it was gross. So, I mean, yeah, Robert Saleh should be licking his chops, play a running back there, give the Lamar Jackson joke at quarterback. So it should be better. There's some people that believe Cam Newton will have kind of this career renaissance. I don't know. I love the home opening against the Patriots. It's somewhat poetic, fully changing of eras there between the New England Patriots of old and hopefully the New York Jets of new.
No doubt about that one, Paul. And then you kind of look ahead here. Week 3 at Denver, winnable game early in the season. We'll see who's playing quarterback for the Broncos. What could change the total dynamic of that game, as you know, is I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know where you're at with the whole Aaron Rodgers situation, but if he were to be traded and it is Denver, all of a sudden that game in week 3 becomes that much harder for the New York Jets.
That's right. That, to me, as soon as the Aaron Rodgers trade bubble started during draft week, and I said, let me look at some fits. Panthers, sure, they make sense. Okay, Raiders could be an outside chance. But I went, oh, my. The Denver Broncos, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler. I'm like, sweet Lord have mercy. I'm like, that team is asking for a quarterback, an instant Super Bowl contender. So, yes, there is a little thing in the back of my head that's immediately said, winnable game, nice, road game, no problem. Then, ooh, A-Rod. Ooh, that situation's bubbling. So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, quite frankly, on any team is a Super Bowl contender. But on the Denver Broncos, man, that could be next level. So a little worry at the back of the head. That suddenly goes from Wimbledon to, oh, boy, A-Rod. That could be a problem, especially when you look at the Jets cornerback room. So that's something to watch right now. Looks winnable, and so does, quite frankly, not today, the first large portion of the schedule before that bye week for the Jets.
No doubt about it. So let's continue here, Paul, as we kind of look at it. After the Denver Broncos, week 4, October 3rd, it is a home game against the Tennessee Titans at 1 p.m. on CBS. So that's where you can find that game. And then it gets interesting. Week 5, October 10th, for the first time since the 2015 season, the Jets will head to London, not to face the Dolphins, not to face the Jaguars, but randomly to face the Atlanta Falcons. So the Jets will be in London and they'll take on an NFC opponent. And then, of course, after London, the Jets have their bye week in week number 6 of the season. So a little early for the bye, but I guess you prefer the bye after the travel of going to London. Any surprise of the Jets being one of the only 4 teams this year that actually go to London to take on an opponent?
I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Maybe we should have saw it coming. When Woody was the whole ambassador to the UK The Jets coming over. He may have shrugged a couple good words over there. Maybe we should have saw this coming. So when it was announced this morning, there's Jets Falcons. I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that? Obviously, there was some sort of connection here. But man, this is going to be one of the stiffest challenges for Robert Saleh all year long. Think about it. Matt Ryan, former league MVP, Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones. Oh yeah, Kyle Pitts. Let's just throw that into the mix. The embarrassment of riches there on offense for the Dirty Birds. I mean, this Falcons, right now, I have zero answers on May 12th. I hope Robert Saleh has better answers than that when this game comes about. And who wouldn't sign up for 9:30 football for you guys and some of your listeners there in Houston? What, 8:30 football? Make sure you get your coffee and Red Bull to kick off the morning. Oh, baby. I'm all about that. So give me 9:30 football all the time. But should be an entertaining game. And quite frankly, good to mix it up. And you mentioned that 2015 year. Brandon Marshall was in the middle of the best of his career. Chris Ivory was running buck wild. Muhammad Wilkerson, sorry to throw that reference out there, had 2 or 3 sacks in that game as well, man. Things were popping. That's that 2015 year that, as a Jets guy, always seems to get away. I'm like, that team could have done something in the playoffs. But 10-6, and they did make it. So thanks for bringing that up to myself.
That's the thing, Paul. I had that team did make the playoffs. We'd view them so much differently, but the way it ended, I mean, I just, anytime I have someone on from that team on the radio show, it's painful for me to discuss, going from the high of the Patriot win in overtime to what happened in Buffalo the previous week. So we'll see. The Jets did win in Miami, or did win against the Dolphins in London, I should say, the last time they played there. So hopefully they could win again against the Falcons. And that one, I mentioned, the bye week comes. So you look at early on here, through the London game, there's not a single team you look at and go, oh, the Jets don't have any chance to win. They're not going to go, 5-0, I'd imagine. But, they should be competitive in all these games. I don't look at the early portion of the schedule and think that Zach Wilson's going to be overwhelmed and that the Jets are just going to be crushed in every game like they were this past year with Adam Gase.
No, and 7 of the first 8 opponents did make the playoffs last year. As you look at it on the schedule here, the only one that did is the Titans, and they were one and done in the playoffs. So take that for what you will. And the Titans aren't a team that's going to run away from you. Literally, I guess, with Derrick Henry. But, quite frankly, look at the offense. Those are going to be some sort of close defensive slugfest between those two teams. So, yeah, I look at it the same way you do. I look at it. Who is scaring you on the schedule? And you don't want to get too for yourself, get all prisoner of the moment here, but this looks like this could be a great start to the Jets regime. And look at the past first-year Jets head coaches in history. Not some of like Adam Gase and Todd Bowles, but look at some of the other ones. Herm Edwards made the playoffs. Eric Mangini made the playoffs year 1. Rex Ryan made the playoffs year 1 and some. And then obviously, you look at the Todd Bowles didn't end up making the playoffs. But, there's a lot of success there. There's a foundation potentially for Robert Saleh to jump on the hype train and get this thing started in the right direction.
No doubt. So after the bye week, it gets interesting. You're playing the New England Patriots for the second time, week 7, October 24th. Obviously, this game would be, in New England. And what's fascinating about this game, there's a chance that it could be a different quarterback for the Patriots. Let's see what Cam Newton's like this year and how quickly Mac Jones progresses, because it would not shock me if Mac Jones is the quarterback the second time around that the Jets face the Patriots.
It wouldn't shock me either, and I like the fact that the Jets, and no one's really talked about this with the Jets schedule. I like extra time to play the Patriots. If you give me 100 years to play the Patriots ahead of time and give me that prep time, Robert Saleh and the rest of the staff would really appreciate it. So I think that's a sneaky part of the schedule that not a lot of people talk about, is getting ready for that Belichick game. Whether Saleh defensively or whether Mike LaFleur getting creative and maybe saving some things for this portion of the season to throw some wrinkles into the mix. The Jets were doing some homework earlier in the day on Tavon Austin. They have Elijah Moore, a lot of these versatile chess pieces that could do all kinds of different things on the offensive side of the ball. I'm sure he'd love to save something for the old division rival there. So 100% extra prep time, that's good. And as you mentioned, the potential quarterback change. And man, could you have two things that are more polar different? Like, you look at Mac Jones, he has the mobility of a parked car. You look at Cam Newton over there, and he's a dynamic weapon that's one of the greatest dual-threat quarterbacks in NFL history. So, hopefully, if the Patriots made this change, it's in the middle of the Jets bye week, so they could prepare a totally different plan, because they would certainly need one if they had to change their quarterback.
Totally agree. After New England, a winnable game at home, week 8 on Halloween against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, of course, will be the quarterback by then. He should be fully healthy, and I think he's going to play week 1 based on his comments. But that being said, look, if the Jets are going to find some wins on their schedule at home against a Bengals team that's also not very good the past season, this is a winnable game for the Jets.
We'll see. You mentioned Joe Burrow could be healthy by week 1, and we certainly hope so. Will he be healthy by week 8? I don't know. They decided to go Jamar Chase instead of the Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater route. Joe Burrow will be looking up at the stars as Carl Lawson, his ex-Bengal teammates, looking down on him, give him the icky shuffle, maybe a little shuffle-wuffle going on over there. So, this is a very winnable game against a Bengals team that's, it's pretty holy. And I'm not talking about the religious sense. There's some holes going on that team that perhaps the Jets can certainly take advantage of. So, that Bengals game, home game, these are the games if you're going to be making the playoffs, this is the kind of game you got to win.
You're right about that. Winnable game. I mean, the Jets are going to have a season where they exceed the expectations, like the Knicks are doing in New York, and what we've seen the Islanders do when they finally got some competent coaching and some competent management. I mean, we've seen some New York teams in recent years that have been laughing stocks overachieve because they had the coaching and infrastructure in place. And if the Jets had that in place, that's a game you got to win when we look back on the schedule here. Now, as far as week 9, this game's fascinating because it's the first primetime game the Jets have on the schedule. You could call the London game a primetime game, but it's not really in primetime because it's starting so early in the morning. It's a standalone game, but not quite a primetime. This game, though, is indeed a primetime matchup here at the Indianapolis Colts, Thursday Night Football, Week 9, November 4th. We will see, what Carson Wentz looks like at that point for Indy. I think Indy has a chance to be one of the better teams in the AFC if Wentz kind of reverts back to what he was before this past season. So that's a challenging game for the Jets on the road, but we'll see the Jets in primetime. And, hopefully by then Zach Wilson is really clicking with his offense. And, even if they don't win that game, you just want to see him play well and give people a chance who are maybe watching the Jets up close in a standalone game, a chance to kind of see what they're all about.
You mentioned that the first primetime game, hell, it's the only primetime game on the schedule for the Jets. And I saw a lot of fans have been chirping on social media. Folks, this team was 2-14 last year, for Pete's sake. I'm as big of a fan as the next guy, but I mean, come on, people. They got to prove themselves a little bit. And I think you made a great comment on social media to some of these fans that are out there that, hey, folks, Robert Saleh looks good. Zach Wilson looks good. The team looks good. Next year, they're going to load up those primetime games. The media, the NFL, everybody wants New York to be good. The big market, they want this to be sexy. They want to maximize it. They want to take advantage of it, and they hope they will to open up that opportunity, of course. The Jets have to play well this year. With this only primetime game, this is going to be an opportunity, obviously, for this Jets team to test themselves against the true mettle of the AFC. The Colts are another one of those teams that, again, if you put a legitimate quarterback on it, maybe they are a Super Bowl contender. Is Carson Wentz that guy? I don't know. He's talented. He's with Frank Reich, who, when he had Frank Reich in Philadelphia, he had his best year ever. So, you connect the dots here and think that maybe he can rekindle some of that magic. Jonathan Taylor is an absolute beast. Michael Pittman Jr. is the guy all the Jets people wanted but never got an opportunity to get. A very talented team, and that defense is straight nasty with guys like Darius Leonard and so many talented playmakers on that side of the ball. So this will be a true test for the New York Jets on a short week on Thursday Night Football. Again, one that they'll likely and obviously be an underdog in heading into. But this one to me is tasty. The Jets and Colts have had some interesting battles over the years. And remember, a bunch of years ago, the Jets had that primetime game against the Colts, and Calvin Pryor. Yeah, there's a shout-out, Jet fans. Calvin Pryor having that crazy game for the New York Jets, making some noise in that crazy win. I believe that was also part of that 2015 season. I remember Brandon Marshall dragging a couple Colts defenders into the end zone winning that one. So, the Jets and Colts have had some good battles. Obviously, all the trades forth with Quincy Wilson and Henry Anderson and all these coaches and players going. They have a very special connection there.
No doubt. And you're right. That game was in 2015. Darrelle Revis had like an interception and a fumble recovery in that one. So it actually was a very good, primetime moment for the Jets on Monday Night Football at the time, which we haven't had too many of those, obviously, over the last 10 years. After Indy, they play the Buffalo Bills for the first time. They get the Bills at home. It's going to be a difficult game. kind of a litmus test to see where the Jets are at that point. But you're going to have to play the Bills twice. For the first time, you get the Buffalo Bills, and when you play them, it won't be until week 10.
And thankfully, for multiple reasons. First off, let's mix it up for Pete's sake. It's in 3 of the last 4 years prior to this schedule cut, the Jets have opened up against the Bills. First off, I just liked a little bit of variety in the diet. This is nice. And secondly, as you just mentioned, that Buffalo Bills team, pretty good. They went to the AFC Championship game last year, and they've retained basically the entirety of the roster in terms of the starters on both sides. So this Bills team is very good. At this point in the season, they should be firing on all cylinders. We'll see if the Josh Allen thing is going to continue to be a thing. Last year, he was an MVP candidate. You cannot question everything he was able to bring to the table. But the thing I want to see is, okay, Josh Allen popped last year. How does he react to all the NFL defensive coordinators all off season long? Say, oh, let's see if you can mess with this. Let's see how you react to these coverages and these blitzes and things. If Josh Allen, again, takes that next step in his development and he's able to adapt or die in those NFL games, then Josh Allen's going to continue to get heaps of credit. If all of a sudden he takes a step back because NFL coordinators are a little bit more prepared for what he's going to bring to the table, I think that's the thing to watch out for this one. But obviously the Buffalo Bills are pretty good, and at week 10, I imagine they're going to be among the AFC's elite.
No doubt. And the longer you put it off, the more time Zach Wilson gets to get more comfortable before he has to go up against better defenses. Certainly the Bills qualify there with, the defense they have. And, obviously, they're one of the best teams in the league last year. So you got to play them twice. I think it's better to get them later in the season than early on. After the Bills, you stay in the AFC East. First game of the year against the Miami Dolphins. Miami's an interesting team, Paul, because talent-wise, they have a really good roster. They won 10 games last year, but we still really don't know what they have with their quarterback in Tua. A lot of rumors that they could trade for Deshaun Watson pre the legal issues. A lot of rumblings about Miami being involved and maybe even drafting a quarterback this year. They, of course, didn't. They stick with Tua. This game will come down to, basically how Tua plays. Like, we'll kind of get an idea of what the Dolphins are at that point in the year. And, if Tua's not their guy, by then there might be a lot of talk about the Dolphins, being one of those teams in the mix to get one of these disgruntled quarterbacks that could be available. But it should be fun to see Zach Wilson go up against Tua for the first time.
Oh, no question about it. Again, the Dolphins obviously felt very high about Tua, taking him 5th overall, and not this year's draft, but the year before. And this is where it's going to be. How good the Miami Dolphins are solely depend on Tua, because you've got to feel good about the rest of the roster. They've done a very good job of turning that thing around very quickly. And by the way, Jet fans and the Jets in general should be putting up a picture of the Miami Dolphin up in the locker room, because that should be the motivation. No one thought the Dolphins were going to win 10 games last year, and then they did. The Jets, again, expectations are very, has them like 5.5 or 6.5 wins. If they want to upset the apple cart, the Dolphins are the team they should be idolizing and surrounding a young quarterback with as much talent as possible, led by a defensive stalwart and Brian Flores for Miami, and in this case, Robert Saleh, another bald guy, just the bald guys in the AFC East. They're for the Jets side of things. So that's what they've got to be hoping for, is trying to mimic the Dolphin stuff. In terms of the game, heck yeah, you got 2 young quarterbacks. You got 2 defenses that are going to be smashing after it. I miss the days of Dan Marino and Ken O'Brien trading shots and the Wesley Walker touchdowns and what that rivalry used to really mean, the Monday Night Miracle and everything else. This Jets-Dolphins rivalry used to be with the NFL, and since it's been just a whole lot of nothing. I'd love to see them rekindle that. Maybe they can with Zach Wilson and Tua taking the next leap. And if Tua is not the guy, again, you mentioned Dolphins are going to be in a great position to get Sean Watson, Russell Wilson, somebody, because they're going to have plenty of picks, and they still do.
Travis writes in, I don't want to idolize anybody, but I get the point in regards to what Paul was saying about using, the Dolphins as the blueprint. But that's really a blueprint, excuse me. But that's really what it comes down to, Paul. Like, if the Jets are going to be better than people think, look at the Miami Dolphins, because 2 years ago they were tanking for Tua. They finished 5-11. Flores had them playing really hard at the end of the year. Remember, they had that big upset over New England that sent New England to wild card weekend and all that. They built on that going into last year. They end up winning 10 games, and that's because Flores proved he's a really good coach despite the limitations he had with Tua at quarterback. So if the Jets are going to be better than people think, obviously Zach Wilson has to play well, but the Jets coaching from top to bottom has to get the most out of the roster they do have. And I think the Jets are capable of that. I don't think there's this, I can see the Jets being a lot like what the Giants were this past year, where even though they started 1-7, you still felt really good about the coach. They were in every game. They were playing hard, and they got better as the year went on. I hope we see improvement from this Jets team from the start of the year throughout the year. You want to see progress and development of the young players, throughout the course of the season.
Too many times the Jets were getting slapped around like an ugly stepsister over there and getting blown out last year with that brilliant offensive mind and Adams. This time, I think Giants are just looking to compete. If they do exactly as you were saying with the Dolphins, they lose a tough 17-14 game. They push some of these talented teams, like we mentioned the Colts primetime game week 9. In a primetime game, you push them, and it's like 30-20, but Zach Wilson looked really good. Again, I'm not playing for second place here. The Jets to be able to be in the playoffs, and this should be the best opportunity to do it. The playoffs are expanded. There's 7 teams on each conference. If my math is right, there's 16 teams in each of those conferences. Figure it out. Like half the teams, essentially, it's like 48%. 48% of the teams make it. The Jets have to be a little bit above average to be able to make the playoffs. Easier said than done, but that's what they have to do. So 100% competing should be the level. And when you're in a game of competition, sometimes the weirdly shaped ball, the oblong-shaped ball can jump this way or that way, and maybe it, slips that way a couple of times for the Jets.
No doubt about that. As we continue here, Paul, breaking down the schedule after the Miami Dolphins in week 11, this has got to be a game the Jets win if they're serious about, surprising folks and competing for a playoff spot. They play the Houston Texans. This is a game I've eyed on the calendar for a long time. I was hoping to be earlier in the year. Of course, I'm based here in Houston. I'm wearing my Houston Jets fan t-shirt. We have a huge following of Jets fans that live here in the city of Houston. So I hope tons of Jet fans, come on down and enjoy the tailgating experience outside of NRG Stadium, because Houston's a phenomenal city. And, I know a lot of the Jet fans here are all pumped the Jets are coming to town, but that's not till November 28th, week 12. I'll tell you what, if you are a Jet fan and you plan on coming to Houston, you're happy this game is in November, because you're going to really enjoy the weather here when it's like 75 degrees for that game at kickoff, and you're going to be tailgating outside and then enjoy a nice air-conditioned NRG Stadium for kickoff.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy that. I'm also going to enjoy Czech's nose Davis Mills playing instead of Deshaun Watson. That also intrigues me greatly. So I'm hoping that's the case, and I'm sure the Jets are too when you get to that point in the season in Week 12. And really, the weather, the tailgating, that's nice. A little, getting away from all this blustery wet. Like last week here in New York, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, draft week or something. There was snow on the ground. It's like April 20th. What the heck? So snow and it's crap, and then we're going to get that later in the season. Hell yeah. Hook me down, Jake. Save me a seat, buddy.
Well, you're more than welcome to come on down for sure. Let me talk about the next game after that one. So from the Texan matchup there, the Texans are in week 12 to week 13. We go December 5th, home against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what the Eagles are going to be yet. I mean, if Jalen Hurts is really good, they could be better than we think. If he's not very good, well, the Eagles are going to be probably interested in either drafting a quarterback with all their first-round picks next year, or being in the mix for Deshaun Watson, being in the mix for Aaron Rodgers, maybe being in the mix for Russell Wilson. So we'll kind of take a wait-and-see approach with the Eagles. But once again, Paul, another game that is very winnable for the Jets later in the season.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts. I loved him coming out of college, but I think he's in a lose-lose scenario team. And a lose-lose scenario, the Eagles team stinks. So they've got Devontae Smith. They've got some other talented playmakers like Miles Sanders and others. But quite frankly, I just don't think there's enough around there. And obviously, you have the rookie head coach and Nick Sirianni who's there. So this is obviously a winnable game for the Jets. And also, weird factoid, the Jets have never beaten the Eagles in history. So let's get that monkey off our back. Why not? If you're the New York Jets after all this time. So that could be a great opportunity there to get a win in the NFC least, because that NFC East is not looking very good. The Jets should take advantage. Of course, this is the bonus game as part of this with the 17-game expansion. This is why they're playing the Eagles in the season, let alone, especially here in Week 13. Very winnable game late in the year.
Joe Douglas revenge game, possibly. I see NY Jets Florida writes it. Douglas will be hyped. I mean, he ended on good terms with the Eagles, of course, but I'm sure he'd want to, get a win against his old team and his protege, of course, Howie Roseman, who's calling all the shots still for the Eagles. So I didn't think about the Douglas angle there. Good job by NY Jets Florida pointing that one out. But yeah, Paul, I mean, Joe Douglas against his old team. How about that?
That's funny. That's hilarious. It's funny because sometimes you head into these weeks, you're like, oh wait, there's this connection, that connection, this connection. 100%. There's a lot of that Eagles Jets love there, and Jet fans speaking, putting up like a blueprint on the wall. With Joe Douglas carrying around all those Super Bowl championships with Philly and Baltimore and everything. Jets fans want to be that team who hadn't won a Super Bowl in the Eagles case ever, and for the Jets case in over 50 years. That's what they want it to be. So 100%. You got the Joe Douglas revenge game. You got a lot going on there, and I love it. The city of brother love. This is good.
Absolutely. All right, to week 14 we go here. We're nearing the home stretch of our game-by-game Jet schedule breakdown here. Week 14, December 12th, New Orleans Saints at home, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff on Fox. Once again, it's kind of been a theme of breaking down the schedule. Winnable game for the Jets at home. Saints are a dome team. It's late in the year. You would expect the Jets to hopefully be playing their best football by then, as they get more comfortable with Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson gets more experience. Remember, Sam Darnold at the end of his rookie year led the NFL in passing. So there was a lot of optimism from Jets fans about Sam going into year 2. I'd like to see Zach Wilson play really well down the stretch. Winnable game at home. Saints are a good team, but how good are they going to be this year when Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston's quarterbacking them? So this is a game where I'm sure we could look back on it months from now and maybe we'll be dead wrong. New Orleans is great. Who knows? But to me, it's another winnable game on the schedule for the Jets later in the season.
And also a worthy nugget mentioning here from week 13, that's from Philadelphia December 5th through week 17, January 2nd. So a month worth of time before the final game against the Buffalo Bills. The Jets are on the road once, and that's the week 15 at Dolphins game, which we'll get to here in a minute. So just from that standpoint, very favorable for the Jets on the back end here to potentially make some magic. And I also got this from a BYU posted at the Jets League schedule on Heavy.com. And I heard someone say, hey, BYU battle, Taysom Hill versus Zach Wilson in a BYU battle. So maybe that's another storyline. Apparently, we're not going to have love, potentially, for all the Cougar fans out there. But that could be great. But, yeah, initially, you have to remember, Drew Brees is gone. So you look at the New Orleans Saints thing at first, you're like, Drew Brees, high-flying offense. Whoa. Jameis Winston? Taysom Hill? This is winnable. And you haven't been able to say that over the last 15 years with the Saints. Former Super Bowl champions, of course, in that magical year with the Saints. And Drew Brees, one of the greatest passers of all time. We'll see if Sean Payton can make chicken salad at a chicken you-know-what with one famous Jameis or Taysom Hill, one way or another. This seems to be exactly as you said, a very winnable game here against what has been the class of the NFC over the last 10 years.
You're right about that. All right, Paul, we're nearing the home stretch. As I mentioned, week 15 now. This is interesting. We don't know the date or the time for the Jets' second matchup with the Miami Dolphins. Now, the first matchup is at home, so this is a road game. Week 15, it will either be on December 18th or 19th, depending on what the NFL wants to do with the schedule. We know they're playing the Dolphins. We don't know the time. We don't know the day. We don't know the network. This could be a part of a Saturday doubleheader. Could be on Sunday. We'll kind of wait and see. This is one of those games, Jet fans, where if you complain you're not in prime time, if the game means something for the Jets and Dolphins, there's a chance that's a game that's flexed to a primetime slot. So be on standby for that. And if you want to see the Jets in primetime, here's your chance for the Jets to be flexed into it based on what happens with the Jets and Dolphins throughout the season.
Yep, and you just mentioned it. So the 18th is that Saturday in December. That could either be a 4:30 or 8 p.m. kickoff potentially. And it's all up to the Jets. So you're 1,000% right. Any of the fans that have been complaining and doing all this noise on social media, we don't have enough prime games. Well, if you don't have enough primetime games, Jets will prove it. Put your money where your mouth is and show up and show some chutzpah. The NFL, again, wants to be able – that's why they left this opportunity on the table. They're like, hey, Jets, if you're good, we'll throw you in there. And the Jets can double their amount of primetime games this year by throwing that in there. And, again, I mentioned it. I want to see the Jets and Dolphins relevant again. It's been far too long since they both have. So, yeah, that could be a tasty one. And I'm all for Saturday football. These standalone games where everyone's watching it, that's the kind of pressure you got to enjoy.
You're absolutely right. All right. Now, this is a game I think every Jet fan should have circled on their calendar. The day after Christmas, week 16, home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer will go up against the Jets. So you have the number 1 pick against the number 2 pick in the draft. I'm curious because it's not his fault that the Jets won 2 meaningless games late in December. But the reception for Trevor Lawrence, I think the Jet fans are going to be all over him because we could have had him. It didn't work out. And it's not Trevor Lawrence's fault, but I just know how New York is. I think there's going to be trolling of Trevor Lawrence. And the Jet fan is going to be going after him when the Jets and Zach Wilson take him on. I mean, there's going to probably be chance of Wilson's better, assuming Wilson's playing well, and the Jets could win that game. Man, MetLife will be a lot of fun the day after Christmas in that matchup.
Jake, I know you've moved to Houston now, but you have the pulse of the fan base like you're living up here back in New York, man. That's it. That's 100%. They're going to give it to him. And again, this is another one of those interesting litmus tests that, again, week one, we're going to have all these huge reactions and takes based on the Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson thing in just week one. You fast forward to this in week 16, which, again, it was a game that I had circled before we even knew where it was going to be. It's number 1 pick versus number 2 pick. And again, for what? I don't know, 99% of the last season? Yep, Trevor Lawrence to the Jets on the Draft Network. Even up until the draft, they had a Trevor Lawrence in a Jets jersey still on the front page of the website the entire time. It was still like, stop it. We don't want to see this anymore. Come on, man. But that had been up there the entire time. So Jet fans were convinced, just like they were convinced that Joe Thuney was coming to the Jets. They're like, yeah, he's a Jet. Wait, he signed with the Chiefs? Wait, what? What happened there? They're the same thing with Trevor Lawrence. They assumed he's going to be there. So this is a huge test to show that if Zach Wilson lights up Trevor Lawrence, they're like, aha, we knew it. This was on purpose. The Jets won those meaningless games, and we got the better quarterback all along. So we all know what the reaction is going to be for this one. This is one that I think I'm surprised it's a 1 o'clock game. It's this late in the season, but this one had potential if you really wanted to milk that Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson angle, if you wanted to give that a little bit more love.
Honestly, I thought this game could have been week one. Like, I thought there was a chance that the Jets, you could have put Lawrence on Monday Night Football against Zach Wilson. Like, if you wanted to do something like that and get the New York media market involved and have Trevor Lawrence involved, you could have put this game in primetime. Like, if you're going to put this game in primetime, you'd have to do it early in the season when no one's seen Wilson and Trevor Lawrence play in the NFL. If you're not going to put it in primetime, I still thought it'd be earlier in the year. But, hey, it's late in the season. By then, we'll kind of have an idea on how Wilson and Trevor Lawrence's rookie seasons are going. And, we'll get a feel for, how both Jacksonville and the Jets are doing after they each combined to win a grand total of 3 games this past season. So, that matchup should be a ton of fun. There's no doubt about that. Week 17, Tom Brady back at MetLife Stadium against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, by then, the Bucs might have everything locked up. They might not. This is going to be a very difficult game for the Jets, of course, assuming the Bucs are as good as we believe them to be as the defending champs. But, late in the year, remember Sam Darnold's rookie year, he went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets lost the game, but Sam played so well in that game. I think every Jet fan felt great about Darnold at the end of his rookie season. It will be interesting to see how Wilson does facing a guy like Tom Brady, that late in the year. Another litmus test for the Jets to kind of see where they're at that stage of the season.
A guy taunted me for the last 20 years. I thought we were done with it, and then all of a sudden he's coming back to MetLife at Tom Brady. So, of course, this is another one of those games that everyone had circled, and, it feels a little bit weird because, you rooted against this guy the entire time, but him in Tampa Bay, I'm like, hey, win all you want. As long as it's not the Patriots, that was fine by me, and I think by a lot of Jet fans as well. So, yeah, you mentioned an interesting point. Tampa Bay at this point could very much have everything locked up. Look at that division. Drew Brees is gone, so the Saints are a question mark. The Panthers won 5 games last year, and the Falcons, for as much talent as they have on offense, they've got a brand new first-year head coach in Arthur Smith. What are they going to be? This could be, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers putting this baby in cruise control in week 8 and just the way through. So 1,000%, this game could have little to no meaning for the Buccaneers, which could mean a lot of meaning for the New York Jets.
And it will be nice to root for the Jets all season long, as opposed to having to root against them essentially last year, trying to get the first pick. It pained me to do it, but that was the move. I'm not rooting for Adam Gase. Sorry. So now, at least at the end of the year, we can hope that the Jets are, the dream scenario in the mix for a playoff spot. But obviously you just want to see the growth of Zach Wilson and, the end of that 2018 season with Sam playing well. I thought that was a big reason why, you were optimistic about the Jets. And then we know they hired Adam Gase and let Mike McCagnon spend all the money. But we feel like they have a good general manager. We'll find out what Saleh is as the head coach. These games late in the year are going to be so important for the Jets to build, this foundation for what we hope is a team that if they're not in the playoffs in 2021, all right, but by 2022, you're expecting with another draft, another offseason. We know about the 10 draft picks the Jets have next year. Like, you're feeling good about the Jets if they're playing well, this late in December.
This is a storyline, quite frankly, we haven't addressed yet, but it's fascinating to me. How does Zach Wilson learn from his mistakes? Because obviously, spoiler alert, Jet fans, going to throw a pick at some point during the season. I know that shocks a lot of fans out there, but that's going to happen. So how does he face? So okay, he plays the Buffalo Bills a couple weeks before. Let's say it's a horrible game and the Bills defense toys around with him. Sean McDermott, a great defensive mind. Wouldn't be surprising if he gives Zach Wilson the business. Okay, what about week 18? And again, the Bills could have some things locked up at this point, but maybe this is another opportunity where they're trying to lock something in. The Jets are competing for the playoffs, or at the very least, just trying to show some chutzpah and keep that momentum going towards the offseason. How does Zach Wilson face a team for a second time? And obviously, this is his last opportunity to do so, because you would have already gotten the Patriots twice earlier in the year, and then also getting the Miami Dolphins. That to me is fascinating. How does this rookie handle adversity? Because he's going to get a lot of it, and obviously this New York market's got different. BYU is a much bigger market than people give it credit for all the the lineage at BYU and everything else. But obviously the New York market's a different animal. I'm curious how he handles all this, and he's going to get a great opportunity the final regular season game of 2021.
Totally agree, Paul. And, you mentioned it, final game at the Bills, week 18. Still kind of feels weird to say, week 18. I mean, I'm going to be, mentally screwing that up on the radio and on YouTube. I'm sure tons of, copious amounts of times when talking about the schedule and thinking like, oh, a 10-6 record. No, wait, it's 10-7 now. Like, little things like that are definitely going to throw me off as a football fan. But that being said, There's a bit of a delay there, so sorry. We kind of stepped over each other there, Paul. But I was just gonna say real quick here, how nice would it be if the Jets can't make the playoffs? Somehow they could hurt the Bills last week of the season. That week 18, maybe hurt them with playoff positioning, maybe ruin a bye week for them. So if the Jets can't go to the playoffs and the Bills might go to the playoffs, well, maybe that week 18 means something for them, and the Jets could go into Buffalo and spoil the Bills' season or somehow impact their playoff positioning in that last week.
Well, you mentioned 2015 a couple of times throughout this show, and the Buffalo had absolutely nothing to play for. And I was there in week 16, and we'll have to get used to all the changes. I was there week 16, Jets Patriots overtime, Eric Decker, back right corner of the end zone, and we see up on the video board the Jets showing in the stadium the Steelers lost, which means the Jets win and you're in the following week 17. And all of us, myself included, said, oh, man, the Jets are in the playoffs. The first time since 2010. Of course, past the biscuits, they're beating the Bills. The 3-interception game from Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter. We all know the horrible taste that season ended on. To potentially return the favor and, again, give the business to the Buffalo Bills? Oh, yes. Sign me up. Every Jets fan would sign themselves up. That's the kind of delectable tasty I would love to sink my teeth into.
Oh, wouldn't that be glorious if the Jets could, impact the Bills' playoff positioning, ruin their chance at a first-round bye or a home playoff game, in the first round. Who knows? But, obviously, we have no idea how it's going to play out between now and then, but it's fun to dream a little bit as we've gone game by game here, Paul, through the Jets season. So let's kind of end with this. Your big takeaways now for the entire schedule. What immediately stands out to you? And from the Jet fan perspective, what are you the most looking forward to with this year's schedule?
As we talked about at the beginning of the schedule, I think when you look at it, when you see the beginning portion of the schedule, and quite frankly, the Jets have a lot of winnable games here. Panthers won 5 games last year. Patriots missed the playoffs. Broncos obviously have a lot of quarterback mess there outside of a potential Aaron Rodgers situation. Titans made the playoffs, but they were one done. The Falcons are, but you're in London. You lose a road game. That was supposed to be a road game in hostile territory, and now all of a sudden it's this weird neutral home game that everyone has the same advantage in for the Jets. Then you play in New England, then you play the Bengals. In the first 8 weeks of the season, you play one playoff team. If you're the Jets, you've got to be licking your chops saying, what a beautiful job by the schedule makers. And as I said on the back end, of course, with the Jets finishing with a 2-14 record, they got that last place schedule. And when you go on the other side, again, the one road game between week 13 and week 17 is a beautiful thing for the Jets. So really, I mean, there's a couple of tough opponents. Again, Buccaneers, Bills at the end. You got to hope that either they're resting or at the very least, it's just two tough challenges at the end of the year. But I look at the schedule and I say, and I know it's crazy, and I'm a Jets guy, so I'm somewhat biased, but in a perfect world, the 8, 9, 10 win ballpark is the ceiling for this team. And to me, that's a playoffs. When you have 7 teams in each respective conference, that's an opportunity for the Jets to make some noise. So there's some wonderful games that I've circled. The Panthers game, of course, the Jaguars game later in the season, Tom Brady's return. There's so many delectable storylines for the New York Jets. And of course, there's just this brand new, fresh out of the package feeling with Robert Saleh, Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Corey Davis. And quite frankly, the biggest takeaway is I think the Jets scored points, and I almost had to pinch myself. I can't believe we're on YouTube talking about this, Jake, is that this team hasn't scored a lot of points in a long time. The brilliant offensive line, Adam Gase, and every other brilliant guy who've come before him, and I'm using heavy quotations, as heavy as I possibly can. You know, the Jets haven't been able to score some gosh darn points. I want to see some touchdowns, baby. I want to see some scoring. I want to see some hood. And I believe we're going to get some. So that's exciting with games. You match those two things together, and that's magic. And I am so excited about Robert Saleh. He brings a palpable energy that I think Jet fans got a taste of during the draft, seeing those draft calls, him slapping the table and passionately speaking with these youngsters. We live in a different world than we lived in a year ago. That's for sure.
No doubt. For me, the expectation is I want to see this team not get blown out. I want to see them in games. Like, they were too many games the last couple of years where they were just blown out. They were not competitive. You know, if they're going to lose to better teams, I can live with that when you have a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. But I see this team at the minimum doubling their win total. I think the floor for the Jets is at least 4 wins. I think if everything goes right, we're talking about a team that has at least 8 win potential. And you know what? You want to know how you surprise people even more? You know, Zach Wilson has a Justin Herbert-like rookie year. Robert Saleh has a Brian Flores-like rookie year as a head coach. Like, the path is there. You mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, Paul. There's been Jets head coaches that come in, take over a bad team, and year one have them either at double-digit wins or in the playoffs. Todd Bowles even won 10 games back in that infamous now 2015 season. So I'm expecting, competitiveness, vast improvement, but ultimately this season's all about the development of Zach Wilson. I think the defense will be better. Free agency certainly helped that defensive line. There's still some concerns with the secondary. I think we all understand that. But at the end of the day, I think they're an improved team, and it's all about what we see from Zach Wilson. By the end of this year, we want to believe that we got the guy at quarterback, right? We want to believe that now, the Jets are in position with the right guy under center to build around going forward. And I don't know how to really quantify how many wins that looks like, but you'll know it when we see it. If Zach Wilson plays well, even if the wins maybe aren't there, if you're a Jet fan, you'll feel good about the future of him taking that big step and being that franchise quarterback.
And then again, I think I speak for a lot of Jet fans. In 2018, when Sam Darnold was drafted, a lot of us thought we found the guy. The media saying, "Woof, Jet fans, this is the guy." We were fed that. We believed that. And then, you fast forward 3 years later, he's traded. So, I know a lot of Jet fans are burned by it, but I'm going to be honest. At the beginning of this process, I think I was very much like you, Jake, seeing a bunch of your, obviously the Jake Asman show and seeing your YouTube videos. At first, to me, all year long was Trevor Lawrence or bust. That was it. And if not, I was cool trying to figure out a way with Sam Darnold to figure it out. But then I started reading up on Zach Wilson, watching more games, watching tape, talking to people around him. I'm like, man, this kid's special. This is a good quarterback class. You got to buy in. And that's after, months of looking into it, talking to people that have been around. It made all the sense in the world to me that you had to, unfortunately, for what it was, you had to move on from Sam Darnold and reset the clock. And they're doing it with a very talented guy in Zach Wilson. Very kind about should every Jets fan on the planet right now. Is that Zach Wilson right now is more talent than any rookie quarterback the Jets have had since Mark Sanchez. You look at the offensive line, which again has some issues. You look at the backfield. You look at wide receivers. You look at tight end. I see competent pieces, and I don't think we've said that for a long time. So if Zach Wilson fails, it won't be because the Jets didn't put enough pieces around him, and that should help us sleep at night.
Totally agree. He's Paul Boyd Green, Edsen Jr. Paul is awesome talking all things Jets. He does local radio in Syracuse. He's also the Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. He's the host of his own Jets podcast, The Jet Zone. So definitely check that out and subscribe to Paul's podcast. Paul, I appreciate you coming on, breaking down the schedule. This was a ton of fun, and I think every Jet fan is really going to enjoy the insight.
All right, from one Jets fan to another, I hope you guys appreciate it. Jake, thank you for allowing me to grace this with the presence. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, man, and anytime, brother, anytime.
Travis, thank you in the comments. Scott, thank you. Corey in Utah, thank you. Just want to give some shout outs to those on YouTube who engaged with the show. NY Jets FL has been with us throughout, so thanks to everyone in YouTube who stuck with us here watching the program live. Once again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the channel. I don't know, all the YouTube stuff I'm supposed to ask you guys to do. It certainly is appreciated. Thanks so much for tuning in. And anytime the Jets have something big that happens, we'll definitely be on here to break it all down. Have a good Wednesday, everybody. And if you're still going to watch the NFL primetime, schedule release, sorry for spoiling it for you. I guess we'll leave it at that. So long.